Welcome everybody to the North Middlesex Regional School District School Committee. It is March 10th, 2026. In attendance tonight, we have Jackie White.
Yes.
Kim Craven.
Present.
Keenan Francois.
Yes.
Michael Lavoisier.
Yes.
And myself, Lisa Martin. For administration, we have in attendance Dr. Reese, Nancy Haynes, Kevin Comier, and Jeremy Hammond, and Robin Ivy. We are recording this meeting. The next scheduled meeting will be April 14th, 2026 at 6 p.m. The consent agenda. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
That is Kim Craven and Keenan Francois with a second. And we can, since no one is online, is that correct?
No, we have attendees online.
Well, Alexander or Carla?
Yes, we do not have any
Okay.
members online.
Then for that one, I do not have to take a roll call vote. Those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that passes. Do we have any public comment?
Let me just confirm.
None,
Okay.
unless somebody here.
There's one in the pocket. There's one in the pocket. Submitted.
It was actually old. It was from 2025, I noticed on the date, so I think it was just in there by,
Yeah, it could be, yeah, sorry.
All right. Is there
Really
no-
confused by that.
I should have.
Thank you.
See you more. Yep.
Anyone in the room that wants to do a public comment? All right. At this time, we're going to skip the reports, if that's okay with everybody. And we are going to go to the item of new business, the annual review of safety protocols, presented by Principal Smith and Sylvester. It's Sylvester, correct?
Sylvester.
Sylvester, okay. The SRO officer, Sylvester. All right.
Evening. So we're here to talk about the school district safety protocols in regards to intruder drills. And so we've implemented, we're still using the ALICE protocol, which we've been doing since 2013. So it's been going on for 13 years. And there's three basic goals for this, and it's to prepare faculty and students to survive a violent intruder, empower faculty and students to make decisions, and give faculty and students options to increase their chances of survival if we were to have an intruder at any school within the district.
The ALICE team, it consists of, from Pepper PD, Chief Blaine and Detective Zink. From Townsend, it's gonna be me, Officer Silvestri, that's SRO. And then we're working on having another training in the district this summer to get some more members on the team. And obviously, Lori Smith is also on the team.
So the basic premise of ALICE is there's 5 steps to do that. It's alert, information, alert, lockdown, inform, which is information, counter, and evacuate. And there's different levels that you do that. The main goal is to evacuate. That increases your chance of survival to get out of the area where an intruder is. There's different response options when you counter. There's distraction techniques and swarm techniques. Distraction is how you just distract someone. The swarm is if you go into the intruder and take them down. And we teach these things at different levels. So, and K through 3, it's just that, K through 4. And they just, like, the teachers go over in the classroom and explain it, and it's just about basically what it is. They follow what the teacher or the person that's in the room, and they do what they need to do. They lock down and barricade, or they evacuate depending on where they are with the information that's given to those adults. In grades 5 is the same thing, but 6 through 8, they are taught the distraction technique. That's one thing that's added to that, is that so it's basically about distracting the intruder if they come across them, like throwing things at them, throwing at their head, just to like give a little more information so that a little more for time so they can get away. In grades 9 through 12, we do the counter where it is the distraction technique and it's the swarm. So the students are taught on how to swarm and to take someone down and get a weapon away if they choose to do so. All the staff in the district at all different areas, custodial secretaries, the cafeteria workers, everybody has been trained on this, and every year we kind of do different things for the trainings. So, and we always do the new teacher orientation, where we get up with the new teachers and explain everything, and we show how they do different things and answer the questions based on whatever school that they're in. And then we do the district-wide teach every year, well, every other year we do it the district-wide first day. We'll go over it with everybody because everybody's pretty much been trained. And then the off years when we don't do it at the district-wide, we do go into the buildings and we go over and tell the teachers and answer questions, and we kind of go to different things about the buildings.
As far as the drills go, they happen 2 times a year at every single school. They are in the fall and the spring. During the fall drill, the students actually leave the school campus and go to a rally point. We're not going to disclose where the rally points are, obviously for security and safety reasons. There's a reunification site. There's plans with town workers where to shut down roads. Obviously, all that stuff's evolving in time. There's going to be first responders coming from everywhere if there's an incident. So we got to make sure these students are walking on sidewalks, and because during the drills, they kind of swarm into the streets, and we got to remind them, like, there's not going to be 17 police officers here blocking roads, walking the sidewalk, because everyone's going to be going to the school. So that's where the town workers come in. They got the big plow trucks that block off streets, barricades, all stuff like that. And then as far as the reunification site goes, there's 2 different reunification sites that will be disclosed with parents and anyone responding to the scene to grab the child when the incidents occur, and God forbid if it ever happens. That all stuff will be shot out in like a mass text or email as far as that goes, where the reunification would be.
At the reunification sites, there is a plan. There's 2 different spots within our district, so that there's a whole plan on how to get the parents to make sure we make the right parents with the right student based on who's supposed to be picking up their child or who's on their information card. It says that they can pick things that we would keep track of what the student is going with. It would be the same thing for faculty and that type of thing. That's pretty much the kind of the gist of it. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions? Any concerns? Anything? Oh, Kim, of course.
Perfect.
Kim, some questions.
So obviously the trajectory has been to either do Alice or Alert or some type of training within the schools. Having been exposed to a lot of that with my work, in tracking the research from every town from BEM safety that they've been doing around the actual trauma that students go through in faculty when they're actually doing the trainings. Do you have any backup, like sort of resiliency for those that are going through it? Because it can have that effect. You know, it's pretty startling, the increase in depression and concern from students when they go through that. Is there anything in place or anything that you think would be helpful to the district to have in place as a support mechanism for that? And I'm happy to share that research from every town with you and some of the other things that are going on.
So we've been doing it for so long, and I think it's we do the trainings, we follow the Alice protocol, but we do it a little differently. And we do a lot of kind of legwork beforehand with the teachers in the building before we train the students every year. We do it every year, and we answer questions. And the rally point, the one in the fall, is always just to get them to know where it is. So yes, we say that there's an intruder and we make it sound like a drill, but we're very clear when it's a drill. And then when we were walking, there's so many of us, but police and the first responders, fires there. And so we kind of monitor, and then we always do a debrief in the buildings before we leave. So that way if there's a staff member or a first student who's showing kind of signs, because we have a lot of kids that come from other districts. I can speak for students in my own building that they've come from schools that have had an intruder. So we did know that when they came in. So the first room we had this year when they were there, we made sure there was someone, a staff member outside that room. And so we watched to make sure. So we wanted to not single them out, but we watched, and then if we saw the anxiety, we walked next to them and kind of talked and dealt with it after some called parents. So we do have things in place. it's everybody, it's all based on the information we receive though, so that's why we always kind of ask, especially if we know, unfortunately, we're the schools in America that have had them, that we are able to, when they come here, and they say that they're from that area.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
But we appreciate that too, you did understand that, because when the time does come, we absolutely will reach out.
Okay.
Anyone else? Thank you. We appreciate it and keeping everyone safe.
Thank you.
Moving on. Oh. Miss, you're up next. It's you. You have out of state field trip request.
Is it the Best Buddy one?
Yes, it is the best.
So this is a summertime conference that every year the president of the Best Buddies is required by Best Buddies for the president to go for this training. And it's done in July, and they, you know, it's in a different state, they fly there. And we just want, because we're the Best Buddies organization and our building does pay for it, we wanted to make sure that it was approved. Sometimes it's usually a parent that goes with them. Sometimes it is one of their advisors. We are going to be having 2 new advisors next year, because the 2 people we've had for many years is stepping down. So there's a chance that they're going to end up going also. But we just wanted to approval for, it's a couple-day conference. It's amazing what I understand. They learn a lot about how the Best Buddies organization and how to uphold their standards and what they need to do, and like how to use their software for things and to plan things. So that's kind of what we're looking for approval.
Can you explain to people what Best Buddies is for the audience? Because some of them may not know.
Best Buddies is an inclusive program for students with just disabilities that allows them to be with other mainstream students, that help them do and socialize and do other programs. So, you know, at the high school level here, they have these outings on the weekends that they go bowling with their buddies, they'll go do different things. You'll see them a lot of times with our new students come up as freshmen or just new to the building, they're part of the Best Buddies programs. You'll see them have lunch together, and like, so they're introducing them to their friends and just helping them like learn the social skills and like have friends and learn how to do different things like that.
Any questions? Sounds like an amazing trip that they.
Yeah, it is really cool for the presidents. They bring back a lot of stuff.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the school committee vote to approve the Best Buddies chapter president and advisors to attend the Best Buddies International Leadership Conference at Indiana University on July 17th to 20th, 2026.
Second.
That was Keenan and Michael. I'm gonna give it to. So now we don't need a roll call vote, because has Alexander or Carla joined remotely? No.
I'll let you know if they do.
All right. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, approved.
Thank you.
You are welcome, and thank you for presenting tonight. Okay, we have NMRSD Day on the Hill. This is Monday, March 30th. It's an event for the school committee to attend and go down and meet the legislators, and also meet other school committee members and do some talking of different things they're going to be presenting on the agendas coming forward for the legislatures. If you guys are interested in attending, there is your cost will be provided. We do have a line within the budget to pay for. So if anyone is interested in going, I know Jackie had contacted.
I would love to go, except now I have work meetings that have been scheduled for that day, so
All right.
it's not looking great.
I was also interested in going to that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I think you can just go online and register.
And then like.
And then-
receive.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and Keenan, were you thinking of going?
I have processed the entire day.
Okay, Kim, what are you thinking of going?
I would like to go, I just have to wait
Okay, Randy,
until the last minute.
I know you're just watching. Randy has joined our meeting. Thank you, Randy. It's okay.
Traffic.
It's okay.
From Boston.
Are you going to go to the Day on the Hill?
Honestly, I had not gotten that far in
Okay.
schedule.
You don't, it's okay,
Okay.
but we do have money in our budget line for school committee that the cost would be provided
Okay.
or covered. So just let me know if you're interested. I'll check with Carla and Alexander and Lisa Bloom, if they're interested as well. All right. Now, moving on. Do we want, instead of doing, because Brad is not here yet, he is on his way, or Superintendent Morgan is on his way. Do we want to jump forward to policy? But Randy, I know you just walked in the door. We're moving right along here, sorry.
Yes, that is okay. I can do that.
Okay, let's go into policy.
Okay. So policy, we have the very first one, JG Middle School Pathways. This is one that we passed, I think it was 2 meetings ago. The DESE came back with language changes that they wanted. So Gary brought them forward to the subcommittee. We voted this in to go straight to adoption since we just adopted it, and the language is something that DESE is requesting that we have in there. So I'm going to move that the school committee vote to approve policy JG Middle School Pathways for adoption.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Randy and Michael for the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Because we don't have to do roll call because we have no one online.
Wonderful.
Yes.
How different.
It's a few different steps tonight. All right, moving on then, Randy, to the other
And
policies.
then, we've typically been taking the votes for first reading together, unless somebody has any objections. So I will move that we approve policy FCB, retirement of facilities, BEDH, public participation at school committee meetings, and BDE, subcommittees of the school committee for a first reading.
And this is only for the first reading, so
This is only for a
everyone
first
can
reading.
comment back on
Yes.
going forward.
And once we get a second, I'm happy to explain what's
Second.
changed.
All right, that was Randy with the motion and Michael with the second. All right,
Okay.
so do you want to explain what
So,
happened
yep.
before we take a
So
vote?
with FCB, this is one that we were talking about in December. It was requested that we bring it back and have a little bit more objective and change things, the format a little bit. So we went through and we had tried to do that, took out some of the subjective comments that were in there about the budget, kind of tried to keep the meaning of it, which is basically that we want to, if there's going to be retirement facilities, that the superintendent brings it to the school committee, and the school committee immediately will decide what steps need to be taken, so that there's no confusion about what we want, what's needed, and then there's a list of things that would be considered if we're going to be looking at closing a facility again.
Anybody have any questions about that policy?
So. We can do our changes now or changes, or request to change?
If you have some requested changes, you can pass those along to me. Again, this is a first reading. I'll go onto the website.
Okay.
And then during the next meeting, we would move for adoption unless there were some major changes. But anything that comes up, I can bring to the subcommittee to consider and look at.
Okay. I will email them to you then, Randy.
Okay, great. And then I'll just go for, never mind, I don't have internet yet. BEDH, public participation at school committee meetings. We took a look at this, and the one change that we made in this is with the recent increase in emails being read during public comment, looking at the policy. Again, the policy never said anything about emails. It never addressed anybody but a speaker at our meetings. The intent of the policy, from what we discussed, of how it was written originally, was to try and encourage participation in our meetings, for people to show up to see what's going on and to speak to us. So we wanted to address the email so that it was consistently done. We agreed that also that it takes a lot of time out of our meetings to read the emails, and whoever's reading it can put their own reflections in it. So our compromise was to list them on the agenda, because obviously it would have to be, within 24 hours to request it be there. we'd list them on the public comment section of the agenda, and then those emails would be part of the packet, but we would not read them. And that's the major change to that one.
Okay, so, just a second. I have one thing, because we allow people to do public comment before 4 PM the day of. Would this be considered for an email as well? And then it would not have time to make the agenda at the night. So there's like, that has to be looked at,
Okay.
because like a person can, you know, just look at the agenda and say, oh, I have a comment about this. I'm gonna go in and talk about this, but supply an email. So I think that has to be worked out a little bit.
Okay.
And I am hesitant about not reading the full email, because if you give this to town officials,
Town officials for
I know
official
that's an
town
exception.
use is the
Yes.
exception, not for individuals' opinion, but if
but
it's a
I
town
still
use.
think that's a gray area,
Okay,
you know, because I think a town official and somebody else speaking, I think they should be given the same latitude of being able to stand up and, or have their email read. So that's just my opinion, but I mean, we'll go with what the committee.
Check.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Sorry.
So we're in the policy, it says written comments longer than 3 minutes can be submitted. Are you wanting to strike that out of there?
no, what that section, refers to is if somebody wants to speak, but they have a lot to say, that's gonna go over the 3 minutes, they want to paraphrase when they talk, they can submit a longer, written response so that the school committee can see their longer response. At least that's how I interpreted that section of the policy.
Okay. So just my thought, again, I can email things, but we're here for discussion. I think for accessibility for the largest members of the community, I think since I've been on, there have been emails written at various times at the request of the sender. It would take some legwork, but if I heard your concern being inflection or tone of the person reading it, why don't we just put it through AI to read?
Because the AI can put stuff into it that.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly explore something like that, it's not something that we have, but the other larger part was the amount of time that it takes. Because it's hard to see, I guess if we're gonna use AI, we might be able to get an idea, but it could take a lot of time. I know there's a lot of concern on the committee that we kind of stick to the time and have our meetings beyond our business. And if they're trying to address the school committee and we have the emails that we can read, they're addressing the school committee. And we're reading it and we're seeing what they're saying. As far as speaking during the public meeting, it didn't seem like if they can't make it to the meeting, they're still getting their point to us. And if we keep it as part of the packet, then the public will get to see what they said as well. I'm not sure, you know, if it's there, if it's public record in the meeting packet, we all see it, then why does it need to be spoken? We don't respond to it either, so it's not like we have a dialogue.
I'm just thinking of the amount of other public meetings that are on the same night as ours, that we're taking an opportunity away from people that might be on other boards or committees, but still have an interest. And when I say AI reading it, I mean, there's tools like Scribe and things that are, they're going to read it verbatim. They won't put other words in there. I have no problem with having a non-school committee member read them if the intent is for the person that is submitting those comments to have them read. Because of, you know, an impact statement or written statement, I think it's heard by the same people at the same time. And I would hate to exclude somebody just because they have another responsibility that evening from having it presented to the public during the public comment period.
The public comment is they're addressing the school committee, they're not addressing the public.
Of course, but people in the public are hearing it. It is public comment. I just feel like we have. I feel like the school committee has done a really good job about being accessible to members of the community that can't be here. And that taking that away, I think, backsteps us a little bit.
Well, and it
Just my
may be,
opinion.
and I'm gonna add a little, it might be a transparency thing, like that, you know, we want it to be transparent to the public, all the things that we get in sometimes. And not everyone goes to the packet to read it. I mean, people would rather watch a video and listen to the audio sometimes than, so again, however the committee feels, I mean, that's the direction we'll move. And so,
May I ask a question? So is it going to be listed on the agenda?
Yes.
Each one will be listed, so it will say email from our Ivy? Is that
Yes.
what-
Yeah,
So I would just ask that the deadline be at least a week ahead of time, and we don't always, we have to meet the, you know, the 48-hour notice, but we're trying to get them posted early, so.
yeah,
And when I receive those emails, many of them are specific. I want this read into public comment. So just how we would respond to that.
well, and sometimes when the agenda is published, it's not, you know, they don't know necessarily what's coming on to make a public comment until we give them the 48
True, I
hours.
just hadn't think of that, but yeah, just so we.
So I still think it should be looked at and we should figure out a process for this. And so, I mean, it's just going into the first reading. I'm sure the public will comment on this as they're welcome to public or give us comments back on it. And currently we'll read your email in public if you request it to be read. I mean, so.
I mean, maybe we could tweak this to be something to the effect of, by default, it wouldn't be read in unless asked for. We make that public, like, you know, we sort of announce that to the public, maybe we include broadcast that information some way to people that says basically, if you want it read, say that you want it read, otherwise it'll be included in the packet or something like that.
Is that not how it stands now? I don't feel like they're reading everyone.
Yeah,
Only
I
the
think
ones
that's
that are
That's the process that's been used, but it's
Yeah.
not in the policy.
Policy, right, we just have to.
So there's
document
nothing that
it.
says that.
Okay.
So.
Fair, that's fair.
Can I ask that all the letters that you read during our budget hearing, those all asked to be read during public comment? Okay.
yes.
Because
I mean, there are lots of letters that come in
Yeah.
that just go to the committee or.
Well, and so like usually a request will come in and it'll say, like from the towns that's come in, please read this at your next committee meeting, please read this at your next committee meeting. And the public has been doing that too, like, please read this, I'd like this read into record.
Right, and I like what Kim, just the phrase you use, which is it's an impact statement, right? You want to take that platform moment to have it heard by the larger community,
Yeah,
not just the committees.
I mean, we would really like the person to show up and
Sure.
read the comment,
Right.
but there's always understanding that something comes up and they can't read their statement that they want to make, you know? So I think, like, it goes back to
Okay.
policy and look at,
Look at it, but again, the other things that need to be considered is how long it takes.
Yeah.
Because we have 10 minutes max. So I'm not sure
well,
how.
it's 15
Or
minutes.
15.
Sorry.
You're right, I apologize, 15
We
minutes.
stretched that out a few years ago to 15.
But still 15 minutes and I don't know how we would, we'd have to figure out whether it's, 1 page max, half a page
Yeah.
max, or,
Word count or something.
yeah.
Yeah,
We've never had, it's never been a significant issue except for when we have these,
Like big topics, and I think that's where everyone wants to talk about, big topics, and that's where we do want to hear from the public, and so, I mean,
But I also want to make sure that people aren't,
abusing it.
they're not abusing it, and we'd like to hear from everybody. But it's easy to hide, just like online, a lot of people are very brave online.
Yeah,
People can get very brave what they say in an email.
Yes.
And we'd like to encourage talking.
yes,
but we do attribute their name to it. And quite honestly, I would err on waiving the rule if we have a really hot topic that we need committee members to hear from more of the public. We hear from one another. for longer meetings. If there is something really critical, I think opening that up is more informative to us than less. And I'd rather take extra time if we ever had to leave that rule.
That's right, we can look at it, we can try and figure out, you know, any suggestions on how to just make sure that when someone's speaking, we can tell them your time is up.
Yeah.
How we're gonna do something like that with email, and how we want it to also work, and not just, it's not a problem most of the time. The policy is there for all of the time, especially when we're in a long meeting and there's a lot of people that want to speak.
Well, and I know, like, Randy and I have history with this policy because we redid it a few years ago with some of the stuff that we did and added more to it. So, so I say policy, take it back and rework it, and we'll send suggestions and.
I'd like to have it for a first reading. Is what
Yeah, it can be
the public
first
say,
reading,
And
yes.
and everyone can send in their comments versus us trying to guess at what everybody's looking
Yes,
for.
exactly. Exactly. So send comments forward, and we have members missing tonight that should actually weigh in on the topic as well.
And then the third one is BDE subcommittees of the school committee. And this one, the only thing that changes that the subcommittees themselves choose their chairs. I just went to a lunch and learn with MASC a couple weeks ago on subcommittees. And they were even saying that the subcommittee should be choosing their chair. It shouldn't be appointed as a position. So in the policy, it states that at the meeting, we all get appointed to the committee. The pro temp chair would be appointed by the chair of the full committee, so that somebody sets up the meeting. And then the first order of business would be for the people within the subcommittee to choose their chair. We used to do that.
We did,
a long
like,
time
and
ago.
that's how I thought the policy was written until.
Right. Yeah. Until we
It was,
read it.
until we
again.
reviewed it again. So,
So just kind of put it
So,
back a little bit.
yep, I'm good with that because I do think it should be subcommittee because you can decide on your own thing.
Yeah.
So. Anyone else have any comments on that?
We can still.
There was also the other
Yes.
thing, if there's a vacancy, the committee may appoint a new member to fill the vacancy, like, which I assume has been done that way forever anyways, but now it's officially in there.
Yes.
So, I know what you said as that the chair appoints the standing committees and she appoints the members that they appoint. So you were getting feedback that it shouldn't be that way?
Yes. For the subcommittees of the school committee, they were saying that the subcommittee should choose their chair. I think a standing, or rather, a community, a subcommittee or a committee that's involving the public is different because the school committee needs to run those, and most of the time, like when we have a building committee, we need a school committee person as the chair. But when it's just within our own membership, the chair is chosen by the.
I'd love to just learn a little bit more about that because other ones that I was looking at, like I said, what you said, it's specific, the chair shall appoint the standing subcommittees. And then the chair appoints the chair to each of the standing or ad hoc subcommittees, but this subcommittee appoints the vice chairs. So I just wonder why another district would be
Okay.
different than the recommendation. So I'll look at others.
Yeah, look at others, and what I would do is, just like our policy is an older policy from MASC and has that the chair is appointed. Other school committees may not have updated their policy either.
They might be lagging, true. Thank you.
All right.
Keenan,
What's Keenan?
Totally, I guess mildly related question. Color deficient here. The colors on the documents, what does each color mean?
That,
I couldn't tell you what colors they are. I just
that's
see the
fine.
different shades.
I think that's just a matter of who actually put in the suggestion.
Yeah.
We each get assigned by the computer, or by the network.
Number 3 was me.
That's all.
I just see everything's a different shade and I'm like, I'm not sure what this is supposed to be.
Yeah, no, that's just who typed it in and typed the suggestion in.
All right, so these all go for a first reading. Any more questions from anyone? Okay, it does not have to be a roll call vote. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, those are moving on. All right, now we'll come back to the legislative advocacy and we'll jump back to finance, if that's okay. Is everyone okay with that? Okay. So if we do take a vote, we need 6 members to vote the budget through. Correct, because it's a majority vote, 2/3 vote. So we will take it from here and see. We'll see if we get a budget tonight. Otherwise, we will be calling another meeting because we need to get everyone, we need to pass this to the towns. So, all right, you go ahead, Kim.
Yes. Thank you. So, I'll give the easy part, right, the basic numbers. So we have in the packet the entire budget as it stands right now. You might recall that in the original budget message, the numbers were a bit higher. In one of our finance committees 2 meetings ago, we asked the administration to take a look at the current budget as it stands and what was available for alternative funds rather than just the town assessments, and looking actively at sort of the spend and the projection going towards the end of the year. And as of our, not the last budget meeting, but the budget prior, we were tracking to have about 1.9 left in the FY26 budget. And of course, you know, the figures that are going through with from last year that have been certified. So looking at the totality of the funding that was available, we asked the administration if they would go back and see what could be done, not affecting any of the hiring of staff or the learning environment, but just creative alternatives, whether it be looking at things that were deferred for purchases from FY25, would that be purchased out in 26? Are there other funds that could be used? What could they look at? So the administration went back and took about 105 off the budget itself and came back with using a bit more of the E&D for this year because of the anticipated money for next year. In that meeting as well, we talked about some things that could potentially still happen with the current budget, that FY26 budget, to fill additional vacancies. So what we recommended as the committee was to move forward with the 2.9 budget. Those numbers are in the packet, with the lens that we are going to meet again before our meeting on the 14th of April, giving more time for the administration for budget review to be seeing where we're tracking, if anything will be done, or any other changes in the budget in the positive that would further reduce the assessment to the municipality, not to reduce the budget for the school. And so that's where those numbers came from and were derived. So that means it's the ceiling. It doesn't mean that it can't go lower, but in order to give the municipality something to start doing more concrete planning on, that if we're able to take this vote tonight, knowing that we can come back at it. And I think, you know, if anyone's watched the meeting, I've been clear that I'd love to make it the least disruptive to the municipalities as possible. And right now, Ashby is in the negative, Townsend is just under 2%, and Pebbles at 3.06. Is that correct?
For an assessment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the numbers are getting.
That was 2.9.
2.98, thank you, Superintendent. So just under 3. So coming in under what they had asked for and anticipated. I don't want to close the door, however, on being less of an assessment, there being less of an assessment in the future. But this would be our kind of starting point and see if good things happen. If there's unexpected funding that comes in, we can continue to look at other resources. So that's where we're at. Does anyone have any questions, or does committee members want to add any additional information? And once we're done, I'll have the administration talk about their lens with what they've did as well. Anybody have anything to add? Like,
I mean, I just wanted to add that like, through this whole process, obviously I'm new to a lot of this, but I'm learning a lot about how this whole budgeting process works, and I can see that it's a lot of iteration. It's a lot of coming up with numbers and changing them again and again as more information comes in and whatnot. And so this has been a process, but I think where we are right now with this as like a starting point for where we start with a budget is a good starting point. I think the adjustments that have been made since the public hearing are good ones. It adds a little bit more for more classroom teachers, and using basically a lot of work has been done in the background to get this to where it is. I just want to acknowledge that and say, thank everybody who has worked really hard to get this to this point. But I think where it is a good spot.
Anyone else? Any questions?
Yeah, just a couple. So the first thing is it's a nuance to whether the budget, that this is a ceiling for the budget. This is a ceiling for the assessments. So once we vote a budget, the town assessments can't go up. Our budget can if we had extra money.
yes.
Just want to make sure that, especially with so many new people, that they understand that it's the assessment. So if we have a windfall and we get another $500,000 that we didn't expect, we want to put that into our budget and increase the bottom line by $500,000. It doesn't affect the assessments. That is something that we can still do after this. So just a small nuance. The other thing also, and this will be for later, last Friday was just another lunch and learn. I'm finding those are quite, I encourage everybody, they have them recorded, look back at some of the other MASC lunch and learns. They're doing some really good topics right now. It's a really good resource. Something for the finance committee to think about in the future is they were extremely adamant, and I was a little surprised by this, but extremely adamant that the finance subcommittee does not recommend a budget. The recommendation has to come from the superintendent and should never come from the subcommittee. I was a little surprised too by that, but it's just something to take a look into and maybe talk with MASC for the future.
I will, because if we're going to be a subcommittee, I want to show that we are listening to the administration. So I'll have a delightful conversation with them on that, because otherwise we're not saying that we are supporting what's coming forward. And I think we really need to do that as a committee, as a subcommittee. Doesn't mean that the entire committee has to do it, but I'd love to, I'm going to listen to them and hear their side.
Yeah.
But I think that we would be remiss, and I'll tell them this, to not move it through that process. Otherwise, we shouldn't have a finance subcommittee and just leave it up to the superintendent. But the whole process is to kind of be weighing in and kind of having a group that can work with the administration. So I know that you're not making that rule, but
yeah,
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I would, if you can report back to us, because again, new, right?
Yeah.
I heard them say that too, and it was just like, oh, okay.
Because it's
Kind
not
of
what
intuitive.
it's not what we've done.
Right.
Well, in ways we have, but
Yeah.
Seems like the
And,
key
yeah,
So
purpose of
maybe
finance
the way she
subcommittee.
said it wasn't what she meant, or
Right.
something like that. Like, get to the
Right,
bottom
it's
of
like,
it.
it might be like when a nonprofit accepts the treasurer's report, they might vote on it, but it's just like they're accepting it.
Mhm.
So, I'm gonna learn more.
Yeah.
on that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know.
so any more questions? Do you have anything to add to it?
Sure. So again, I think in looking at our original budget we brought to the hearing, a 3.06% increase, we were able to decrease it again to 2.9%. And that was essentially cutting just about $107,000 going through multiple lines. Kevin and Nancy did a great job with that, just looking at the history of our spending over certain line items, and we ended up being able to add up to that $107,000 figure. And then on top of that, using the additional $500,000 now, which is in part due to the money that we pulled back with our budget freeze last year. So when we're looking at that, realizing that we have about $3.5 this year in E&D. Our goal next year is to have 3. And I do think 3.5 is probably too much. We probably hit the brakes too early last spring, but it did put us in a situation for this year to try to help with a couple of priorities. And I think the 2 priorities we were looking at, first and foremost, were class size, addressing class size issues in the district. And then the second piece that we were trying to do our best with was trying to help the towns, get them to a number that they could afford so that, again, they're not making cuts to their staff, which is counterproductive to the community as a whole. So I think we were able to achieve both of those with this budget. And to Ms. Creighton's point, I do think there's the possibility that we could hear more positive news. This does not take into account any health insurance savings really at this point, because we don't know what the health insurance savings is going to be, even though it's essentially a 0% increase. We don't know what's going to happen during open enrollment to see if we're going to see a shift onto our health insurance plan. And, you know, that's going to put us over budget and eat away at that potential savings. So there is hope that we could potentially be in an even better situation with health insurance, but we won't know that until probably the end of May after open enrollment is over. So that's essentially where we are at right now. Again, keeping all of our staff in the budget, possibly having room for some additional staff as well to really address those class size issues. We also talked about addressing issues in the technology department because they've been asking for an additional technician for years, and we have been unable to do that. So the hope is that again, with the budget, with the potential savings in health insurance, and then some of our special education programming that we're bringing into the district next year, that we're going to possibly see some additional benefits that can help support our budget moving forward. And the goal is, again, to move forward with approximately $3 million in E&D next year and not have it be 3.5 like it is this year. That was just too high. I don't know, Nancy or Kevin, if you'd like to add anything. But it's a budget we are very, very comfortable with, and a budget we support and recommend to the committee.
Okay, just a couple of questions. So when you say that there was a 0% increase in the health insurance, is that really 0% to the premiums, or was that 0% to the line that we're allocating for?
It's 0% to the premiums.
Wow, I've never heard of that.
And that was primarily due to our claims last year, which were.
Even so, I have never heard of insurance going up the premiums by 0%.
Yes, it is truly level funded for next year. I mean, on the downside, we won't see that again, I would doubt, in FY28, and we probably won't see that shift in special education that we saw without a district placement. But the hope is with special education is that we're going to see some help by those 2 programs that we're putting in.
Okay. The other thing is I saw that to help with class size, there's 4 teachers that are coming, or at least 4 FTEs that are coming back?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure that I was finding the right things when I was looking at the budget. Can you talk a little bit more about the extra $500,000 that is being suggested to come from E&D? Because we have policy DIB, and that's going in completely the wrong direction, because, you know, it's one-time money, theoretically.
Yes.
Although I do question whether it's truly one-time money the way that we have it budgeted, because it's always coming back, and if it's always coming back, it's not one-time money. It's kind of like a reserve within the budget that we never seem to use and keep recycling.
So I think it's twofold. You know, obviously it does go against using more money in E&D, or not using more money in E&D. I think the recommendation this year, again, was in part primarily because we hit the brakes so early last year because we were concerned about what was going to happen with the budget. And to be honest, the shift in special education was truly unexpected. That was not something that we saw coming. So I think that for now, E&D, although it's not a great solution, I am getting more confident that we're going to see a shift in the funding formula after after the Student Opportunity Act is fully funded, and that won't be until the end of next year. But the governor has made mention that the formula itself is something that she will not pay attention to until SOA is fully funded, and that will be fully funded at the end of next year. So I think the hope is, for all regional schools, is that all the testifying that's happening, all the advocacy that is taking place statewide. We got a letter from 2 students today that went to all of the superintendents across the state, and it was very, very impressive what they had sent off to us. So I do think the voices are getting more numerous, they're getting louder, and I'm hopeful for change so that we are properly funded and we won't have to use that E&D reserve fund like we have been previously. And up until this year. But I do think it's something we're likely going to have to use at least for the next year beyond this one. I don't know, Nancy or Kevin, again, if you've got anything.
I mean, the only other thing I would add is I think, you know, where we sit right now, the FY26 budget is we're in pretty good shape. It looks like we're going to close out some money from this year's budget. We also received some additional revenues, although that one of them is not here, but it's coming from the Valley Collaborative closeouts. That's $208,000, that's coming. It's not here yet, like I said, but it should be coming. So I think between additional revenue and closeouts for this year, we don't want to end up, you know, like Brad mentioned, back where we were this year. We want to try to have a target of around 3 million in E&D. So I think this, you know, if I didn't see those things coming, I think we would maybe hold back. And if additional money comes from the state, then we could potentially vote the budget so that using that state funding and reducing the E&D ask. So it's possible that could change between now and even town meeting or after.
And the committee can also decide how they want to use any savings that we realize from health insurance as well.
Okay.
Is that something that we want to look at assessments on? Is it something that we want to cut down on RD&P usage? There's multiple different options that we can look at.
Okay, and how much are we looking at this point in time anticipating closing out? You didn't mention a number.
I think we're looking at closing somewhere, I think I budgeted, pull it up here. So we started FY26, our certification from results of FY25 is 3,500,000, just over that. We're planning on using the 2.5, so reducing the E&D by the 2.5. Our estimated revenue closeouts, I'm estimating 555, and 200 of that is the Valley Collaborative, again, not here, but coming. And the other part is that the state aid funding from this year that we never recertified our budget this year, but we did get additional aid, so that's closing out. So I'm projecting just over 500,000 in revenue, and then whatever expenditure. So I'm estimating about $1.5 million closeouts for expenditures, with some, obviously people will be utilizing their budgets for the remainder of this year. So if no big changes happen, I'm expecting it to be approximately that much. So I feel confident that we can use those funds. Again, everyone is aware when we got in this situation a couple years ago, we increased the use of E&D. That won't be here for next year. So we'll be reducing the use of E&D potentially for the next budget cycle. So it's just something for everyone to be aware of. I think short term it's probably a good thing. I'm hoping some of the state numbers come in a little higher and make some adjustments to that.
Okay. I was looking at the budget detail from 224, and it was looking at unexpended expenditures closer to $2 million. Did something change?
Yeah, so what will happen is there's, at the end of every fiscal year, there's purchase orders that people process that they haven't been delivered yet, or there's a project ongoing. Those get carried forward, so it's called an encumbrance. So the change in the encumbrance, I'm just trying to be conservative that we might have a change of encumbrance depending on what projects are pending.
Okay.
So it's not perfect, just expenses, just revenue. There's a little more to the formula, but
yeah, no,
just trying to be
nothing's ever easy,
conservative.
especially with a budget this large. So I'm not trying to make it sound like it's something simple. I was just curious what had changed there.
Yeah, no worries. And the other thing that we can utilize to try to come in where we need to be for E&D, is circuit breaker, because we have, although we are gonna try to shore that up as much as we can while still closing out enough so that we can close out to approximately 3 million. But circuit breaker funds, might be used when we implement new programs, so that it's not hitting the budget directly, but, there's like a couple of year uptick on getting those programs functional, so, or up to speed, so.
Okay, and I'm just curious where the $3 million came from as far as targeting for E&D. Is that something that went through the finance subcommittee? Is that just something that you've been?
I think we talked about it
A couple times. Yeah.
Okay,
I would say that.
I mean, it's,
I think you.
won't be exactly $3 million in the dot, but it's
Yeah.
something, we're trying, it's like just a gauge. I think, again, it's trying to get close to a number that's, just enough for the district so that if there's some kind of emergency that happens or, something is needed mid-year, that we'd have that, something available for that
okay.
purpose.
Because again, policy DIB had targeted 3% or between 3 to 4%, and that's well over the 4% range. Over our budget's gonna be. So again, I had asked for some kind of a plan on how we were gonna achieve and in what time frame we were gonna achieve the goals of policy DIB, which was passed. And currently right now it is in effect because there has not been any votes to suspend it. How are we going towards that by putting $2.5 million now versus the $2 million that was originally, as well as how is that extra $500,000 going to affect next year's budget? Because we know that if we don't close out 2.5, if we don't have that money to spend another 2.5 next year towards our budget, then it's an immediate deficit in next year's budget without any kind of increase for us. That makes sense. So it's kind of like in FY24 when we put the extra E&D in, we did close out with $800,000 less than what we put in. Without increasing our budget $1, we were already negative $800,000 in revenue. So is this $500,000 going to be a negative $500,000 right off the bat next year? How is that going to work?
Yeah, and I think that's why I brought that up, is that we do have to be looking at how that impacts next year. Although at this point, I feel like we definitely are going to close out enough funds, so we could close more out and use less E&D, but I think that would be, to detriment to the budget process at this point, given that we still have some unknowns. And like I said, maybe there'll be some positives, and the reduction of the E&D the use of E&D won't be needed to be as high.
And I mean, I'm not confident that we can come up with a plan for the policy until we get some type of clarity from the state as to whether or not they're going to help us or not. If they're not going to help us, if they're not going to revisit the formula and look at how schools are funded and how much they're giving individual districts to support themselves, it's going to result in significant reductions. So right now, if we don't use E&D, something has to give. We absolutely need this formula looked at, or else districts that are being funded like NM, I mean, there are many that would say we're in the bottom 10. If we're going to continue to receive that funding with the needs the district has, we are not going to be able to properly staff our buildings.
I'll just put it out there, and I know this is a complete oversimplification, so I'm not saying it is quite this easy. But we have $1.872 million in E&D in our budget this year. Without the encumbrances that we're talking about that we may have, we're closing out $1.997 million. Projected right now, it could change. So that tells me that there are expenses in the budget that we're not going to be using. If we're not using them, then they don't need to be in the budget. And I think the district as a whole needs to be getting a little bit more comfortable with budgeting a little bit tighter, budgeting with the potential of a possible negative in a year that would go into our reserves. That's the whole reason why we have reserves, that we don't need these reserves in our budget. Having them outside is sufficient enough. There are other districts that close out, year after year, $100,000 or less, and they're not using their E&D. I think it's a cycle that we get into, and I think that cycle is really hurting this district, trying to look forward. It makes things a lot more complicated, trying to figure out what do we have this year, what do we have next year, what are we gonna do with this, and potentially wind up in a year like FY24, where I was one who really pushed into the extra money so we didn't make the cuts that year, knowing it was one-time money, hoping we were gonna get the overrides. But I wouldn't have done that if I knew that, that was one-time money sitting over here and it didn't support the budget. We were always closing out a lot of money, and it's never easy to predict what we're closing out. I don't know where in our budget we're not using it, but every year we're closing out the same amount of E&D we put in.
So I don't know if either Dr. Reese or Mr. Hammond want to speak to what we closed out with last year. I can say with confidence that we closed out and we ended up with some money, and it was felt. It was something that was absolutely felt in certain departments. So I can't say that we don't need the money, because when we cut, and technology was a good example last year, it's putting us behind. We are falling behind with any type of technology plan to keep current. We're losing out on curriculum items that our students in some cases need, but we're choosing staffing whenever possible
Absolutely.
to use that money for.
Yeah.
So
I'm not trying to say that your budgeting is incorrect. It's just the whole thought of the money. If the money's in the budget and you're not using it because we're trying to save it for E&D so we don't have a deficit the next year, then it might as well not even be there because you're not touching it.
And I think, if I could jump in, if that's okay. And I think you just have to kind of remember that obviously we're not even finished with FY26, and we're trying to project FY27. So there are going to be some areas through next year, health insurance being a big one, because we don't know what will happen in open enrollment. So we're projecting a number that maybe doesn't come to fruition, or maybe we need more. And a lot of these, I think what happens if you get so close is you'll end up maybe choosing to, if you're not making it through the year with the budget that you have, you'll end up using other sources of funding, such as maybe school choice gets depleted, or blanket on.
I mean,
You'll go somewhere for those
Exactly,
costs.
and that's why I have put forth the other policy of a DIBA, which is a revolving account, so that there is something the finance subcommittee is helping to stabilize, to take a look at what should be used, what kind of levels we should be keeping in those funds. So it just makes it a lot easier to know exactly what is available to be spent for the district, instead of always sitting here, we have to save more, we have to save more, we have to save more. It'd be nice to have that flip of, we have this pot, and this is what we have, and we have this over here if something goes wrong. But to be looking more positive, saying, this is a positive amount of money we have to spend, and not always kind of think of how to save, because we tend to, it's hard to be exact, and we tend to save more than we intended, which means that we're cutting things that we wouldn't necessarily have if we were just looking at spending everything in the budget.
Kim.
Thanks. So I'm not discounting, I hear what you're saying. And the new policy says recommend, and we're, minutes away from the new policy. So I guess we have a choice if the committee so wants, to suspend that policy, if that makes me feel more comfortable to have it explicit that we're suspending it. But from my lens, when it says recommend, and we're looking at all these numbers pretty frequently, to both keep the school whole and to keep our communities whole, sometimes you have to make a decision that isn't necessarily in line with exactly how we would love it to be, but moving towards that trajectory, right? That this is really a shift for last year, this year, for foreseeable year, 2 years, that we are patchworking things at both the school and the other departments within the municipalities to get through what was not created by the districts, we're trying to manage it. So in managing that, yes, there's a level of creativity, maybe there's a level of uncomfortableness. And I think as we get further away, maybe from the pandemic, looking at those over-underages, because I did ask the administration to do that, and we didn't have real clarity. So when I put my analytical hat on, it wasn't like, bingo, here's the one, here's the one. It's like, oh, this one, that one. But I think as we get away from the pandemic and things are stabilized, and as we move towards better support from the state, I would predict, you and I won't be here, but I will predict in 3 years that this committee will not be having this struggle.
I don't think the E&D issue has to do with anything that we are funding currently and have nothing to do with the assessments of the town. I think if the money is there and we're using it, and we do need to take responsibility. It's not the people at this, on this committee right now, but this committee as a whole, the whole district did put us into this position by spending more and more E&D every year and saving more and more every year. We got ourselves in this cycle that we need to break. But if we are putting money in only to take that money out again, then we should be able to take the expenses out and the revenue at the same time, not affect assessments and not affect what we're actually paying for.
Well, I do want to affect the assessments in the best way possible, not in a negative way. And I do hear you. I just don't think that we're quite there yet.
And that's why I've asked for a plan. And I'm hearing that we can't do this until we get more funding from the state, and I don't think that is correct. I don't think that should stop us from looking at how to do this. There are committees or districts out there that have done this before. We should be reaching out to them on how they did this. But there are people who have done this, and there is a way out without the state funding. But I'm not hearing anybody going after the solution.
So I think that we are, in that we're trying to analyze where things have been, the best way that we can to review the past, and when we don't have the crystal ball, to try to project out for the future in a really responsible way without shifting so quickly. I'm not comfortable right now as chair. I'd love for my committee members to speak as well, to be making wholesale changes at this point. I think it's more incremental. And where there's so many unknowns right now, I do feel that there will be some opportunities, but I also feel like we have to make some decisions at the school committee level in order to help the municipalities plan. And, you know, I don't think that I've given the administration like a cakewalk through this. Like, I've been having them go back and look and turn up numbers. You can smile, superintendent, that we were pulling them back, right? It's not that, oh, just, you know, fluff it off. It's looking at those numbers. And I think as we progress, it will get there. But for right now, I know I'm comfortable with where we're at. If I saw really different numbers that Nancy's been tracking for us, I might be like, no, not comfortable with that at all. It's the totality of everything that we have to be at this point right now and continuing to move it forward. It's a, you know, as we continue to track numbers, we always be able to say, yeah, you know, that hasn't been spent, so that can be a reduction. I just don't think I'm not confident to make those requests or kind of negotiate that with the administration right now.
That's fine, but again, a plan to go forward, what I'm hearing is it can't be done, we're not gonna look at it until something else happens. I'm looking for that plan. I'm looking for, yes, we're gonna put something together that in 3 years, 5 years, we will be off of E&D. And I'm not getting that back from the administration. And that's what I'm asking for. Because if we don't start planning it, it will never happen.
So I can't speak for the administration, but I can speak from my lens, and again, other committee members can speak as well. I don't think we have the narrative plan 1 through 10 as you might want to see it, but I think that we are trying to look at all opportunities to make that happen. But I can't sit here as the chair and say it's going to be because of not spending here, here, and here, or this will change, just not there, but we're
A
looking at all
high
those
level plan
pieces.
of, you know, how they're gonna try and get there. That's what I've been looking for and I've been asking for a while.
I just want, just a point of clarification, I don't believe I said that we can't. I said, I'm pretty sure I said that I'm not confident. It's not something that we don't look at all the time. And it's not something that we're just going to let go. We're always looking and trying to make improvements to the budget. I think you could argue that there are many of us in this room that only work on the budget. And that's unfortunate because we're unable to do other parts of the job. The budget season starts in August. It's challenging. We don't get anything from the governor until the end of January. The formula's not broken. The entire site is broken. And I think that's pretty
100%
clear
agree with that.
with how it's done. But it's certainly something that we're going to look at. I'm not confident that there's a solution without some substantive change to the formula. That's the only point I wanted to make.
And to be clear, reaching back into E&D is probably more on my shoulders and the push to get those numbers down right now, because I could see the other things in the future, but we just don't know exactly what those other things, the numbers are. So do I think that the plan is to continue with striving for that recommended 3%? Absolutely. And it's going to be listening to what the legislators say, seeing what else comes back, trying to get the best, quickest information on any of the changes in the insurance to see where those numbers can move. But right now, this is the known. But yes, we can do this because I see the projection, right? The past spending for FY26 and where that's going to be and where that will land. Like if that was at 200,000, there's no way that I would think that this was feasible because this other money. Do I think that there can be opportunity for more? Yes, but I don't think that I might be talking about that until later in the summer to really see what that looks like. So it's not that it's being ignored, and I hear you want like a high level. I guess the high level is to watch every single number and to shift as soon as practical, any way that we can. But right now, we're working with what we know. And it's hard, like the budgeting cycle, it's, geez, it could be like a 2-year budget cycle and you know all these numbers. That would be lovely, but we just don't have that latitude. And that's a
Yeah, I think during finance, I also expressed concern and conservatism for using additional E&D money, but unless I missed something, the primary motivation for using this additional $500,000 was to be able to get our assessments for all 3 towns sub 3%. I believe Pepperell before this additional $500,000 was the only one above 3% at 4 point something. I don't know that number off the top of my head, but by cutting the $107,000 give or so, or give a change, plus the additional $500,000 usage of E&D, we were able to get now a budget, which is a good budget, that should be acceptable to all 3 towns, given the parameters that were given, or that, we laid into. When referring to the cycle that you talk about, how we've gotten stuck in the cycle of using D&D and we always have money left over, I wouldn't necessarily consider that, an issue on the same scale that I think you would, but like we're saying, without additional funding from the state, that hole is not a hole that can be filled. If the state came in tomorrow and said, you're going to get whatever formula change, you're now going to get $2 million more a year in whatever combination, we could just remove our E&D from the equation and we would have the same exact budget, but until.
Yeah, we'd have the same budget, but the problem we'd have is we'd be closing out $2 million every year, which would put our E&D above the 3.
Well, sure, but at that point, that's when, what I'm saying is that issue, the spending issue is much easier to address when you know you have the money in the first place. So I think the approach that you're suggesting is just a bit backwards in my opinion. I'm not a budgeter, I'm not a financial expert, but at the end of the day, I don't think we necessarily needed this additional $500,000 of E&D to be used, but it was the path. It was the I hesitate to say easiest path, but it was the most certain path that we could have taken when we are on a timeline. We are on. There are external factors at play, and we discussed during finance with that $107,000 that we did cut from the budget that there is space, but if we remove all of that now, we come next year, we now no longer have anywhere to go. So this is going to be a gradual process, and I think we're making that progress. I think just the ability to articulate exactly how we're doing it in source of a plan is incredibly difficult without any positive reinforcement from the state on what exact changes they're going to do to the formula when they're actually going to start it, because they might crack it open at the end of next year, but it could take them another 5 years to pass it. This is Massachusetts. So.
That is true.
Well, thank you. I would like to just add, using that $500,000 to get all 3 towns into a space where they can support our budget is a refreshing change. I'm glad that many people on here are hopefully going to support this going forward, because the attitude typically has been we need 2 out of the 3 towns. And like in FY23, I think it was, or maybe 24, when Ashby had a shift in their population and they had an 11% increase. We didn't use additional E&D to help them. We had Townsend and Pepperell. So I like this, and I hope it goes forward that we're taking all 3 towns into consideration all the time.
Anything else? Anyone want to add any more comments?
I think that's all I have at the moment.
All right. Let's make a motion.
Yes, and Chair, if there's no more discussion, I'd love to make a motion. I move that the school committee adopt the following budget for the FY27 operational budget of $60,569,906, transportation budget of $5,256,842, debt services at $3,705,812. Further, that I propose these budgets be utilized to calculate the fiscal year 2027 school assessment for the member towns in accordance with the statutory requirements. Additionally, I would recommend the authorization of the use of $2.5 million from the excess and deficiency account to offset the fiscal year FY27 budget. This motion is made with the understanding that the budget allocations are in the best interest of the schools and the communities we serve, aiming to provide the quality education while being fiscally responsible. I would seek a second to the motion to further discussion and vote.
Second.
That is Kim Craven on the motion and Keenan Francois on the second. Any further discussion about the budget?
Just actually one quick one. I know 4 FTEs are going back in to help with the class sizes. Is that all the classes that are really high, or are there still more that need some adjustments if we can find another teacher?
So we have the 4 positions that are in the budget that will likely going to look at the middle school level. We also have 5 kindergarten teachers that we're carrying into next year. We're not projecting at this point to need those 5, so we're likely going to be able to use those K positions elsewhere. We've also, we're in the process of doing a special education audit as well to see, to check for balancing, to make sure that we're consistently using paraprofessionals and special education staff, both inclusion teachers and program staff. And there's also a possibility we could potentially see a shift from some special education positions into regular education positions next year as part of that audit. And that was an internal audit that we did.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank
So
you.
I think we'll be in good shape as far as class sizes go, right?
Good.
Getting them back down to that, hopefully that 25 range. 25 or below is really the goal.
Any further questions? All right, this has to be a roll call vote because it is a budget issue. And so, or a monetary issue. So, Jackie White,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Keenan,
Yes.
Kim,
Kim Craven, yes.
and Lisa Martin, yes. So we have a budget for next year, our starting budget. All right, you have,
I have one other item, from the finance committee. At the last committee meeting, we discussed the solar panels that are sitting on the Ashby elementary site, and the discussion of all that, it was probably assumable that we can move the contract to somebody else. So Nancy was going to take the lead for us and talk with Ashby to see what their wishes were. The feasibility of moving them and reusing them is probably really slim. And moving them on to the community versus the school would give them the opportunity to have some cost savings, but that will be up to Ashby to give us some feedback, and then we'll come back once we know a little bit more from them. So I know that we've been consuming a lot of Nancy's time with the numbers, so when she has opportunity, potentially we can put on the April full committee meeting, because we'll be meeting in finance subcommittee the week prior.
Can I just ask, we don't know, we've had 2 years that we've been looking at the school closed, and we don't know some of these options yet?
We know the options, we just don't
Okay.
know what the town of Ashby would like,
Once-
how they would like
okay.
to proceed. So we do have a meeting scheduled on Thursday morning to talk to, the town administrator. So should know more.
And I think that it might be worth just reiterating for the public here. What Kim was talking about was transferring the contract to the town of Ashby. The problem with moving the panels is we don't, as discussed in the finance meeting, is we don't have a roof currently put them on.
Yeah.
Or a roof currently capable, set up to do so. And moving the panels to be ground-based has the issue of on what land can we put these panels, and there would be additional cost incursions to mount them and whatnot. It's just worth saying for the.
Okay.
well, and the technology, it has changed over time since we put them in, and so,
They were
It's
installed in
outdated.
2017.
yeah, 2017 is the
Yeah,
installation.
the technology has progressed. They have more efficient panels now, so the older ones are worth a bit less in terms of like what you could get for them if you say took them down and tried to sell them or something.
Okay. I was gonna say, with the vote to officially hand the school back to Ashby, taken in, is it January? December, January? When did we take that vote?
January.
January. What is the
Or
date
February.
that we're giving it back, that we're actually releasing?
I think it's the end of October.
Okay, so we have a little bit of time to figure out the PPA.
I think October 30th is the date that,
I couldn't remember if it was 30th or 31st.
yeah, I think it's the 30th. Which is a Friday the 30th. Any further discussion on the panels? Anything else from finance?
I have nothing else to share.
All right. Was there anything in your superintendent's report that you want to share? You're good. Assistant superintendent, you're good. My report is good as well. All right, now going to the letter, the funding letter under legislative advocacy. I did send you guys a copy, and this is just proposed. This was just me And so if anybody has any feedback, can they provide some? You may have not gotten this part in yours. In I added, the part that I added, we urge the legislature to, and then it's highlighted, like in bold. That was something that's taken from the advocacy group that they are doing. So I didn't know if we wanted to mention that in our letter too, to reiterate what we're advocating or our communities are advocating for us.
I think repeating that message will amplify it, and I think anything we can do to amplify those messages is a good thing, because I like that those recommendations, I took that template and I, as an individual, as myself, not as a school committee member, sent that letter to all of the Ways and Means Committee members, and again, having our school committee as well as other school committees around the state amplifying that same message, I think can only help.
Yeah.
So I did have a couple of changes that I sent along to you. I sent it with just a little bit more structure into the paragraphs, and then that you as chair is submitting it on behalf of the committee.
So take out the we area?
So I had what I sent Susan that as chair of the North Middlesex Regional School District School Committee. I submit this letter on behalf of the committee to express strong concern regarding the fiscal pressures faced by the district and many regional schools across the Commonwealth. The current public education funding structure continues to place regional school districts at a significant disadvantage, creating increased strain on the communities they serve. Students in North Middlesex should not bear the consequences of a system that do not adequately reflect the actual cost of providing high-quality education. North Middlesex Regional serves the communities of Ashby, Townsend, and Pepperell. Over the past several years, the district has taken substantial steps to manage recurring budget shortfalls. These difficult decisions have included the closure of an elementary school, reductions in staff, consolidations, limitations on instructional materials and student learning resources, and increased fees for student activities. Despite these measures, the district continues to face difficulty meeting essential operational obligations. Necessary maintenance of school buildings and grounds have been deferred because of available resources are insufficient to address both immediate educational needs and long-term infrastructure. Delaying the repairs increases future costs and places additional pressures. The district has also relied heavily on excess and deficiency funds to balance annual budgets. While these funds provide a short-term stability, they were never intended to support recurring operating expenses. Continued reliance on one-time resources is not sustainable and makes the district increasingly vulnerable. At the same time, the members of the communities of Ashby, Townsend, and Pepperell continue to face growing municipal pressures as they work to support educational funding alongside other essential local services. Local taxpayers have absorbed significant increases in the expectation that municipalities can continue to close the widening funding gaps without stronger state partnership is increasingly difficult to sustain. Under the current funding model, regional schools are asked to do more with fewer resources. Students face reduced opportunities. Educators are expected to meet rising demands under increasingly constrained conditions, and communities are left to carrying a disproportionate share of the financial budget. And on behalf of the committee, I respectfully urge the Commonwealth to take meaningful action. I think substituting that in, and sorry to read that to you, and this is why I don't do community reader day. I can't read out loud. I can speak out loud fine. I can't read out loud fine. That those were just thoughts that I had that I had sent over to Lisa. My thought would be, with the input that you get from various committee members, is that you ultimately, as chair, decide the letter, and then we all sign it when it's done. If that's what you want, all of our signatures on it, I can provide you my electronic signature. But I wanted to give you feedback and thoughts through my lens, and then let you kind of take the ball and run with it as chair and decide.
Anyone else? I think we will reiterate the part from the advocacy group.
Yeah.
I think that part can be slid in to what you said, because I follow along on my copy and it's
Yeah,
similar.
it's similar, I just
It's
repositioned it
similar.
a little bit. Yeah, it wasn't a departure.
It's not a departure
Yeah.
from, would anybody else like anything added to it or?
No, I think that covers it.
Yeah, and I did stay away from adding numbers into it because I think that gets lost when legislators read it. I just think that that's a lost number, kind of, it goes over them.
I don't know, what's more impactful, having us all send something in individually, or
Well,
we
you
can
can do
still-
it, I encourage
Yeah.
individually
Right.
as a community member to send it in. And then we send one as a group. And I would recommend that everyone sign it and we can do the electronic copy because I think it is more impactful seeing the whole committees listed
Right.
underneath it. It's not just one person on the behalf of, I think it speaks for our committee. So, which we can do and Robin can help set up and we can do the automatic signatures online.
Kim, would you feel comfortable sharing your letter with everybody so we can like
Ab-
see it or
absolutely.
riff on it if we want?
Yeah, I
Okay.
just knew that I couldn't send it to everybody before the meeting, I only
Yeah.
sent it to Lisa, so,
Yeah.
I can send it to Robin to send to everybody, if that's easier.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
I can work with Robin and we can conceal not conceal everything.
Consolidate.
Consolidate everything, not conceal it. We're not concealing it. We're consolidating it. And then we can put out a final proof to everyone. Because I'd like to send it out before the end of the week because they are going to be meeting soon. And we do have the addresses and everything. But I just did not include that on the draft copy. And our letterhead as well. So any thoughts from anyone? Any more thoughts, any feedback? And I'll reach out to Alex and Carla and Lisa for feedback as well. All right. I don't think we need a vote on it. Are you guys good without a vote? We'll just send it forward. All right. All right, we are doing really well here. Okay, community outreach. Carla is not here. Pepperell. I have no updates from Pepperell. They are happy, Brad and Nancy did talk to them and they are happy with their number, as are the other towns currently. We have no feedback from. And then how about Townsend? Anything?
I
shared the letter in the past.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say my last correspondence with Valerie Goodrich, as requested last meeting, is attached in the packet. As far as I'm aware, she's pleased that we're doing all we can to get our budget to be supportable by them, and I think we've met their benchmark, so.
All right, anyone else have anything? Anything to be added next April? All right.
I'd like to, I know, Kim had mentioned that if I felt better about us actually formally suspending DIB for this coming year, I would, from the standpoint of it's an acknowledgement from the full school committee to the public that we understand that we are not following this policy. It says it is discouraged, I just read it again, it's discouraged and not to be common practice. So we should acknowledge that we are not implementing it yet, that we're not following it, and that we understand that is what we are doing. We need some kind of accountability to hold ourselves, that we at least know when we're not holding true to a policy, that we acknowledge it, and these are the exceptions on why we're doing that. Otherwise, our policies don't mean anything.
We'll add it to next school committee meeting.
Right, so.
And we'll do discussion at next school committee meeting if that's okay.
Yes.
Right? Because follow the agenda for things. So I'll add it on the next one as one of our first topics to discuss and suspend or not suspend. And we'll take a vote there if that works.
And the other request that I have is, from the superintendent's, on the agenda items I had requested, and looking back at the agenda items, he said that we had, for the 414, meeting, on his list was activity fees and student enrollment. I'd like to request something about the declining enrollment and where we're at with, some of the information that I presented to be put into that. If possible, something on the hold harmless, which is tied to our enrollments, so that we at least can get a primer on how this all ties together and what's going on with that. In your school choice, looking at the openings, I would also like to hear about just the rationale of going back to the school choice, how it affects the district so that everybody, the public, but mainly the new members, how school choice affects the district, the enrollment, the numbers, the funding, where it comes in, kind of just do a primer on that.
So what I'm understanding is, just to reiterate, on the 414, revisit the activities fees.
That was something from the superintendent's list.
And I think Robin has some of these written down already, but I just want to make sure. The declining enrollment and the hold harmless, a discussion, and then the school choice. Now, did we vote on school choice, or did we suspend to?
We did not vote
yet.
at all. It was just the hearing that we had.
Okay. And these are something for the 414 meeting. All right, anybody else, anything? All right, before we adjourn, I would like to thank Nancy for her years of doing the budget. This is your last budget. Well, we hope it's our last budget, but we're not of the school committee, but preparing it. And you've been an asset to the district. You've kept us going and not in a bad way at all. I know that we always go through a budget cycle, and you're the one that has been the calmest of everyone.
It's not actually mine, it's someone who forgot their phone. I'll try to find it.
So, but thank you for being the calm one, Nancy, for all of us, while the rest of us are scared and nervous about the budget going forward. So thank you. Anything else? Anyone? All right. Sure. It's at the discretion of the chair. You can say something.
All right, Chuck Walkovich, member of the Pepperell Select Board. I'd like to thank Brad, Nancy, and Kevin for their hard work that they've done on the budget, as well as the finance committee and the total school board. This is a huge win, I think, for all the towns and for the district. I don't think the fight is over with the state. I would agree with Brad. We can't do anything until the state decides to fund North Middlesex properly. Brad indicated in one of the last meetings that we had that he really needed another $1.5 million to put together what he feels would be an exceptional educational program for our children. I feel that it's a shame that we can't get there. And that is, in my opinion, at the state level. The analysis that Nancy and Kevin have helped me with shows that our funding from the state has decreased in the last 10 years, $3 million. That's a huge burden that is put on our 3 towns, and as well as the administration, to be able to bridge the gap that the towns cannot afford. I would urge everyone to continue their advocacy. I can never do this.
I struggle too.
At the State House. I know I will be at every opportunity speaking on behalf of North Middlesex and the town capital. But I do want to thank everyone for their work on this. This is I think it's a win for the students. I think it's a win for the district, and I think it's a win for the towns. Very rarely do you see that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. All right, anyone else? All right, I think we can take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. That was Keenan and Kim. And unless, do I have to take a roll call? I don't think so. I can just, All right, everyone in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great night.